Hi, I am literary consultant Clara Rose. Welcome to this week's episode of The Savvy Author, where we're helping you to craft your message for the world. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the show. I'd like to invite you to come back each week where I share all of the things that you need to know to help you get your book out of your head, written, edited, formatted, and published and out to the world so that you can make a difference in the world around you with your book. So we invite you to come back each week for that. If you have been here before, welcome back, my friends. Today we're going to talk about a topic that people don't often think about when they are first starting to write, especially when they're first starting to write a book, and that is mastering deadlines. Let's talk about deadlines. What am I talking about? So deadlines really are just those pieces, those parameters that are created for the content creation of anything, but today we're talking, of course, about your book. Even if they're self-imposed, those create an urgency and help you get the work done. So to really help remove some of the stress that can be associated with literary deadlines, learn to plan accordingly. So we're going to be talking today about deadlines because deadlines matter. All right. So this does not just apply to books, so I'm going to talk about a couple of other things as we go today, but always bring it back to your book because that's what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about deadlines and what they are. What is a deadline? So a literary deadline is when things are due. That's not a surprise to you, is it? Know your deadlines because deadlines really do matter. So when is the deadline? Right? First question you need to be asking when you're working on a new project, or maybe it's a self-imposed deadline, but when is the deadline? When is it drop dead, they like to say? What are the requirements for the submission? If you're working on a book, say, there are likely requirements for when you can get your stuff turned in to the person that's doing your editing. And of course, there's going to be deadlines about when to get your content to your graphic design person so that you're sure to get back the stuff that you need in a timely fashion. And ask questions. Be sure to ask all the relevant questions. Know what you have coming your way before it gets to you. Some deadlines are flexible, but some are a hard stop. So you need to know the difference. For instance, if you have a book coming out, which currently I'm in the middle of a launch with one of my authors, and she has a deadline coming out. We have a hard stop because the book has to be in production in time for the proof to arrive, the proof to be approved, and then books to be ordered for the live event. So there's a hard stop deadline for the loading of the manuscript for printing. That's an example of a hard stop. Something that might be a little more flexible for a deadline might be when you get your graphics to your graphic designer. But that's a question to ask right up front in the process. When is the latest I can get this content to you? Understand what their process is so that you can better understand how it's going to affect your timelines. We'll, of course, talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If you're thinking that I'm going to promote my book using an article or using something in a magazine, something that requires a submission to somebody else outside of your editor, your publisher, your graphic designer, you're going to want to know what their submission guidelines are. What are their deadlines? There are often one sheets full of specs that they'll just send you. Sometimes they're even on their website for advertisers. So you can just click in there and look at what the specs are, and it will tell you it needs to be this many words. It needs to be in this particular format. Here's the calendar that we work off of for submissions, and here's the deadline date. Those are hard stop deadlines. If you don't submit on time, you miss that publication. It doesn't matter if your dog had to go to the vet or your kid was sick. You've missed it. It's past, and you just get to move on. So know what they are right up front. Super important. All right, let's move forward. This is like my biggest pet peeve, probably. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Take the project that you're working on, for instance, your book, this is what we're talking about today, and break down into weeks until your deadline. This is going to give you a good idea of what the weekly work requirements or workload is going to be. If you only have 10 weeks and you have 10 chapters, you had better be on the ball, my friend. And then create a schedule to follow for your content creation. I like to call it butt in seat. And that just means to actually get your work done. Create a true schedule that you're going to follow to get that work done. And then I like to say, follow a blueprint as you build your book. This saves so much time and energy if you just follow a written plan. And of course, if you join us for one of the Brainstorm and Blueprint masterclasses, we do that together in the masterclass. Everything that you need to do to stay on track for your deadline happens right there. We teach it right there in the masterclass. That blueprint that you follow is going to be what keeps you on task for getting it done in time. If you don't have a written plan, I've seen it happen over and over. Busyness of life, busyness of family, and busyness of our businesses often will get in the way. So the things that you don't plan, you don't put on your calendar, often become things that get pushed to the side, just like exercise or any other habit that you want to create. Get it on your schedule. If you schedule time for it to happen, it will actually happen. Okay, so plan ahead, plan ahead. Did I mention you ought to plan ahead? Get a good plan in place in writing for you to follow. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about allowing ample time. Ample time to get this project done. Allow extra time for the others that you're going to be working with who may not meet their own deadlines. I know that's shocking, but people often don't meet the deadlines that are set. So know what the deadlines are for other people so that if they don't meet theirs, it doesn't totally flush yours down the toilet. And of course, expect the unexpected delays. Allow buffers to accommodate for the delays that will happen. And then don't forget to build in some extra time for your content to cool. So what do I mean by content cooling? If you are a new writer, this is your first book project perhaps, you may not have heard the term content cooling or let it cool, but that just means that you're going to write something and then you're going to set it aside. Set it aside to cool off. Because when you're writing, the things that you think you wrote aren't always the things that you wrote. You might write something and think, oh, this was so good. But if you set it aside for 24 hours, even a week, and then come back and reread it, you think, what in the heck was I talking about? Or, oh, that didn't make sense at all. Or, that's not what I was trying to say. Clearly, that's not what I was trying to say. So make sure you allow time for each of your chapters to cool so that you can go back and look at them before you decide that they're ready for the editor or that they're ready to set aside and move on to the next chapter. So make sure that there's plenty of time for it to cool. And then I want to just talk briefly about delays. I'm often surprised at how tight people will book their schedules. People who think, I'm going to get this book done in 90 days. Maybe they have an event they want the book for. Maybe they have another reason for having it done in 90 days, or even 6 months is a really aggressive schedule for writing your book. I'm just saying, it's kind of like having a baby. It takes 9 months to cook. So plan accordingly. But if you think, I'm going to get this done really fast, I'm going to get this done in 90 days, and you sit down a really strict writing schedule for yourself, I've seen it happen over and over. Like, I'm hammering it out in this amount of time, and then something comes up, and they miss a week, or they miss a day, or whatever, and it makes the whole thing explode. If you have planned on that book being at a specific event, and then you injure yourself, happened to one of my clients last year, where he hurt his back pretty significantly and put him out of commission for weeks. We did not get the book done for the event because he couldn't do the work. He couldn't sit up at the computer to do the work. Actually happened a number of years ago now, but to me, when I hurt my back and I ended up like flat out on my back for an entire month, couldn't walk, couldn't get out of bed by myself, couldn't do anything by myself. I literally laid in bed for an entire month, and I would hold my cell phone above my head until my arms got tired, and that was the extent of the work that I could do. The only trips that I made were to the restroom and the chiropractor once a day for a month. So that really upset the schedule that I had pre-planned. Luckily, I have built-in buffers in my life, lots of built-in buffers, to accommodate when things happen, because I promise you, things are going to happen. So just make sure that you have allotted ample time for those unexpected things to come up, but you can still get your work done according to the schedule that you have set forth for yourself. All right, enough harping about time. You get the point. Let's move on. Let's talk about prioritizing the tasks associated with getting your book project done. So how can you possibly know that you can get done on time if you haven't pulled together all of your tasks? So I'm going to say, to start with, you want to create a list of necessary tasks. We, of course, do this in the brainstorming piece of Brainstorm and Blueprint. So we're getting all of the steps, the pieces, the content, all of those things pulled out of your head and written down someplace. I put it into a blueprint. You could call it a book outline, whatever you like to call it. Or in addition to your book outline, you can have an outline of your schedule of when things are going to happen. We already talked a little bit about that. Group together tasks as much as possible, only when it makes sense, because shifting gears from one task or type of task to another is a waste of time and mental energy. I can't remember the exact statistic, but there is a statistic that shocked me about how much time it takes to refocus when you move from one task to another task. I think it was like 20 minutes to refocus. So if you think about it in this way, I'm writing, or I'm working on my brainstorm, or I'm blueprint, whatever it is that you're doing towards your book, and the phone rings and you stop and answer the phone. Now, when you're done with that phone call and you get back to what you were doing, it takes 20 minutes, I think was the stat, to get back focused on what you're doing. And then your phone bleeps that you got an urgent email, and then someone walks in the door, an employee walks in the door and talks to you, or maybe you're working from home and a child or spouse walks in the door, says, hey, I just need to know X. 20 minutes. So you can see how that could really eat away at your productivity if you're constantly being interrupted. So group things together, and of course, avoiding distractions is my next point. So avoid the trap of skipping around, and of course, avoid distractions as much as possible. When you're skipping around, it's kind of just an avoidance tactic. You may not realize it, but it is an avoidance tactic. It's common as humans for us to want to avoid tasks and things that make us uncomfortable or that we don't enjoy. But ultimately, of course, you pay the price for that later on. What is a good example of that? Well, here's a good example of that. If you're skipping around in your chapters, which I promise you is a terrible idea, but if you choose to write your book that way, each time you skip from one to another because you're not comfortable with the one chapter that you're writing, or for whatever reason, you lose that consistency of the storyline. So think about this from the perspective of your author for a minute. When they're reading your story, unless your book is intended to be consumed in that way, they're not hopping around in the book. There are a few books out there that I've read that are wonderful, that are specific little content pieces intended to be consumed alone. So if you say, I'm going to just go to this one about social media, I'm just going to read this one, it's a standalone piece and you can consume it that way. But in general, aside from that, your reader is going to start at the beginning and read straight through. So you want it to make sense to them and it to be a cohesive thought process for them. And in the creation process, if you don't keep that in mind, it's going to be disjointed and you'll lose your reader. Over the years, I'm sure you've experienced it. I have experienced it as well. Picking up a book, you start reading it, but partway through you lose interest and put it down. You may not 100% realize why that happened, why you lost interest, but it could be that there was a disconjoinment, that's not a real word, in the process, in the pieces. It lost you somehow. It didn't pull you through the storyline. It didn't pull you through the content of the book, and you lost them. You lost that reader. That is something that can be avoided with a good, strong brainstorm and blueprint, and then starting at the beginning and working through to the end. Now, another kind of avoidance that I see often in my writers is I schedule my time to write, but it seems like, oh, I better throw the laundry in, right? Off you go to throw your laundry in. And they come back and they sit down to write, and it's like, oh, shoot, I forgot to call so-and-so. And it could seem legitimate to you, but I promise you it's avoidance. For some reason, you're not focusing on your content, and it could be as simple as you haven't done a good job with the brainstorm and blueprint process. You haven't done a good job of getting clear on the pieces, or you don't have a good outline to follow and you're trying to just figure it out as you go. It could be as simple as that. Or it could be that you're feeling insecure about your writing, and maybe you need to hire a coach or a consultant, a literary consultant, to help you with the process, someone to guide you and say, yes, you're headed in the right direction. Whatever that is, figure out what your avoidance is so that you can overcome that. It's just a part of this step, prioritizing what needs to be done and making sure that they're done in the right order that needs to happen. Now, it sounds like I'm really preaching pretty hard on the tasks and the brainstorm blueprint piece, and there's a reason for that. It's that this beginning stages of writing your book or crafting your message for the world, if you will, is the foundation for the successful creation of your book. If you don't have this in place, whether you take a brainstorm and blueprint your book masterclass with us, or you find someone else to help you with your outline, however this piece of the process works, don't skip it. Don't just say, I'm going to write a book, sit down at the typewriter, the computer, notepad, however you're going to capture your ideas. Don't just sit down and start trying to write your book. Have a clear plan to help you get through the pieces. Let's talk about them one more time. Deadlines are going to matter for you, my friend. Know your deadline dates so that you can have them on your calendar. Plan ahead so that you're going to actually get the work done in time. If you don't plan ahead, I promise you, you will not get it done. You will not get it published. Allow ample time for the completion of your content. Not just for you, but ample time for other people who are going to be creating content and getting content to you as well. And then, of course, prioritize your creation tasks so that they are also done in timely fashion. It may sound a little bit like I'm harping on it, but I would love to invite you to be a part of our next Brainstorm and Blueprint session. If you truly are at a place where you're ready to start your book, but you don't know where to go, you don't have any idea how to get started, that is the perfect place for you to get started. If you have already started writing your book and you're feeling like you're struggling, I'm stuck, I've written myself into a corner, I don't know what to do next, I have a few chapters, or I have been working on it for an extended period of time, 2 years, sometimes people are working on it for 8 years. I've been working on this for years, not getting anywhere. I promise you it's the foundation that needs the work, and you're also a great candidate to find someone to help you with the foundational stuff that I call Brainstorm and Blueprint. And then, of course, you may have a completely written manuscript already. We can also help you with that. It's just a little different in that we're going to deconstruct your idea backwards and see what your foundation looks like. So people who have already written a book don't often think about that. But from a deadline standpoint, it doesn't do you any good to get your book written if you don't ever actually get it published. Right? So if you're at that point, you're like, all right, I have my book written. I would like to have it published by, in 90 days. If you've already written it, that is a feasible thing. We can look at it and do it in 90 days. We're just going to deconstruct it to make sure your foundation is strong, and then we're going to create an outline to follow to make sure, and a schedule to follow to make sure you meet that deadline of getting your book published and getting it out to the world. Okay, let's talk really just quickly about, we're running out of time, but I want to talk quickly about the Brainstorm Blueprint class that is coming up pretty soon. One starts every other month-ish. This is where we're going to capture all of those book ideas that you have floating around in your head. We're going to get them out of your head and onto paper. For some of you, it's digital paper, but for most of us, we like a tangible. It might be on sticky notes. However, we're going to get it out of your head, and that is the beginning of the Brainstorm and Blueprint Masterclass. We do that together. It's fun, it's exciting, but it's some work, and I'm there to help you. My staff is there to help you with that. Then we're going to organize all of those ideas into topic groups that are going to make sense to your reader. Sounds simple, but it takes a little bit of finagling to get all of the pieces of ideas into the right place so that it truly does make sense in your book. And then we're going to create that outline for your book. So the industry calls this a book build. I like the term blueprint because just like building a house, just like building something, it's a plan to follow. And then finally, we will create a strategy for the successful creation and publication of your completed manuscript. Then everybody rolls into the accountability group where all the writing actually happens. Everyone gets the writing done together. There is no need to try and do this by yourself. Having a group to help you be accountable is the key to success. If you're going to go it alone, at a minimum, find someone to help you be accountable because that's where the ball gets dropped so often. Someone to say, hey, you said chapter 1 was going to be done this week. Are you done with chapter 1? That's what accountability is all about. Okay, so lastly, as I run out of time, I'm so excited. I hope that you're going to be there. If you're a woman, you are interested in real estate investing, I'm going to be in Texas on April 29th and 30th and May 1st to help Teresa Todd kick off her brand new book, Without Fear of Her Future, at her live Reen event called Reen Live. We are super excited to be helping her launch this book that we've just completed together, and you can be one of the first people to get your hands on a copy of this if you're interested. It's hop on over to withoutfearofherfuture.com/book, and you can get on the list. You'll be getting like weekly updates, letting you know that when the book comes out. She's doing some fun special stuff. She'll actually give you a free gift for signing up and being on that list. Of course, you can opt out at any time if you're no longer interested, and you will get an invitation to attend Reen Live or to attend virtually because they'll be streaming. So you can get either ticket. I think that the VIP tickets are probably all gone at this point, but you can get standard seat tickets. I think there's only 7,000 people that fit in the stadium, so at some point, I'm sure that'll be sold out. The streaming, you could probably buy right up until the day that it happens. You will be so impressed by the quality of the content of this event. I say we because I'm so invested in what she's doing. She has some amazing speakers coming to talk with these women about, their finances, creating wealth, generational wealth, investing in real estate, stepping into your own power as a woman and taking charge of your future. She likes to say that the scripture that this book came from, laughing out loud without fear of her future. Her financial future, her spiritual future, her future is well taken care of. And she does that through real estate investing. And she is there to teach you how to do that as well if you're interested. Even if you're not thinking about investing in real estate, I promise you the speaker quality and the content come from the speakers at this event are well worth at least the streaming. Be a part of it, see what's happening, and this is going to be just a super exciting weekend. I'm excited to actually fly out there and be on stage and help celebrate with Teresa this exciting thing that happens in a new author's life. That day when that book actually is live, the year or however long of work to get the book out of your head, to get it written, edited, pulled together, and actually published. This is the most exciting part of it, holding the book in your hand. And I'm going to be on stage to help her celebrate this huge achievement. And I would love for you to be there to help us celebrate. If you are there, please hunt me down, find me. I will be easily accessible. Find me and say, hey, I am a savvy author too. I watch your show. I'd love to meet you. I don't get to see my audience or meet my audience. I do get some emails from you, which I'm always happy to get. If you want to send me comments, questions, thoughts, you can send me emails to hello@clararose.com. I'd be happy to get back with you and answer any questions, but I'd really be thrilled to meet you if you could be at that event. We are just about out of time today. Thank you for being here once again. I so appreciate that you show up every week and hear me talk about what it takes for you to be a savvy author. I'll see you next week.